around to the south, Arriva sends juniors and seniors for half a day to Carroll. They send their seniors half a day to Carroll, their juniors for one course. They elect to take chemistry and go to Carroll. Kurt said that they would talk. And he said, I'm going to show this letter and we're going to talk about some of the things that you have to offer. He said, could we buy half of an ag teacher? And it's like, we don't have an ag teacher to sell to you, okay? So we talked about some of those positions. When I called Danny, it was to say, we're sending this letter to you, and she's like, Barb, we are in the midst of assigning teachers to teacher assignments, and I talked to Dave Quickle 2 or 3 times. And on a personal level, I don't think that his interest is, from his perspective, is on dual credit classes or that sort of thing. But we did talk about some teacher sharing, some possibilities. I talked with Newell Fonda. Jeff Dick said, we are going to be trying to close the building, and it's very difficult for us to have conversations about sharing and get that mixed up in this building closing, because that keeps getting thrown back in our face. In fact, he said we got a letter from Shayla Cressland, and that's been problematic. And just so that people don't get confused, the building needs to be closed whether we share with anybody or not, and we probably need to do some sharing, but it's kind of like one thing at a time. Who did I forget? Rockville City, Shayla Cressland, Arriva, Portable, Southern Cal. Southern Cal just said, we don't see you as a viable option. Where your district is physically and where our district is, we see Rockville City Lytton, who we've done some sharing with. They're going to try to reinitiate that.
What happens when somebody says, we'll come to you for a year or 2, but you got to come back to us for a year or 2? Is that something that, to share both ways?
That would be for you guys to make decisions about whether you
I don't
want
see
to.
that as being feasible.
Well, I don't know if that is either. I'm just trying to throw things out.
Depending on what it was, the district asking to have sharing come back to them would have to be able to house the numbers of kids, or that. But that would also, again, depending on what you'd be talking about.
Doug, what are you looking at for?
Well, I'm just thinking this would be pretty complicated.
Right.
Yes, it is.
You know, if there's a district really struggling out there somewhere, financially, academically, that may be looking for a partner, yeah. But when I first ran for the school board, I was in favor of a county-wide school. Of course, this whole talk in between this district was so far along that wasn't going to happen at that time. But I don't know how all this would work. But I still think districts need to know that at some point in the future that we are willing to talk. In general or whatever, we aren't going to close out anyone to talk about sharing. I don't know how it all works. Like I said, it'd be real complicated, but let's not shut ourselves out for future talks.
I kind of was playing with things here, and I don't see any whole district latching on to us. I think that, if Shayla Cressland, would end up going with Galva Holstein, maybe, something off the edges, my fault, but I don't see any whole district, running into a partnership with us. And I think it's just because of the way their districts lie also. But I think that, if we continue, to market ourselves and show what we have, that, maybe I will be wrong. But I think that, like Chuck says, that Odebo and Battle Creek Ida Grove, they're deep into it. You know, are we, maybe if we can get some ag kids to come up there and we could jockey something so they could, maybe not buy half an ag teacher, but maybe we could teach a freshman, sophomore ag class opposite each other so they could come up, I think that's a dialogue that's open and we need to pursue. Because what I hear you saying is that's the best dialogue you had about sharing with the possibility of ag with our WEPA. That's what I hear.
We use that as an example of
Okay.
something that they need.
Okay.
I don't want you to think that Kirk Razumley said to me that that's what they want to do, but that would be an example. He said, can you spare a half-time family and consumer science teacher? And I said, no, we really have those fully employed, but would you want to send 3, 4, 5 kids up in a van, take English 1, take a FCS class and take something else and spend the morning there? That might be a possibility of, it's like, okay, you kind of get the drift of where you're talking. Then he talked about the fact, we have a full-time Spanish teacher, we're going to cut to half-time potentially. Do you have any interest in sharing? Please don't put that in the paper, I don't know if that teacher knows that. So, but those were when I talked to the superintendents, those were the conversations. I talked to Eric Wood at Southern Cal and to Jeff Cruz, both of them, a number of times, and they are looking at each other. And right now, that's what their two boards seem most interested in doing. Rockville City's got a couple of options. Southern Cal really is looking, they were meeting last week to try to reestablish some sort of relationship because they're each getting smaller.
They're not gonna build.
Pardon?
They're not gonna build on a Southern Cal. Is that what-
I don't know.
I heard that, but I didn't know.
Is there a map of school districts on examples?
There is a map.
That's right, you're right, just wanted to go there.
Yeah, I actually have a map laying on my counter at Lakeview in my office that shows all of the contiguous districts to us, their shapes and sizes. Yep.
And I bet you it probably is one online if you went to
I bet there's two.
Actually, at the Department of Ed website, if you go to the AEAs, and within the AEA, there'll be a map of the districts.
I guess when this relationship started, I guess I wasn't on the board back then, I was a little bit before me, but did we start off pretty slow, like 1 or 2 classes, sharing, and kind of grew from there?
Well, it took a long time just in the conversation. And those of you who've been on the board for a while, tell me if that's wrong, but before we even shared many classes, it was a couple of years of conversations, and then not very many kids in junior high football, and then some kids in ag, and added FFA to that, and then the music teachers came forward, was the next group of teachers. And then auto and health were offered here, and so Lakeview Auburn started sending kids for that, and that's how it kind of grew. But initially, what I remember is it was slow conversation, because the 4 schools in the county were talking. We would meet in Odebolt, and we talked about 2 in the north, 2 in the south, or 2 in the east, 2 in the west. But it did start with some individual teachers and activities.
Well, maybe that's how our next relationship will start there. Slow.
I think this letter's a good start for dialogue. And I think Barb, if she continues to have dialogue with the surrounding superintendents, at this point, we haven't gotten anything from any surrounding districts to say they are, jumping through hoops to try to share with us. So we're a little proactive as far as I'm concerned right now with this. I think the first paragraph says we're interested in any conversation we might have with sharing, and we get specifics on the high school level. To me, that's why I signed it. I'm not going to speak for Chuck, but I thought that was my feeling when I looked at it before I signed it.
Well, maybe what we need to do is Barb says she talks periodically with all the superintendents, is next time she talks, she can just say, hey, the board talked about the letter, they want to just make sure that you understand that we are willing to talk about sharing at any point. That way it doesn't seem like it's, we're, I don't know. I mean, it seemed kind of awkward if another letter comes right away.
Well, and I think that whether we